Welcome, sports fans, to another edition of the RBE Suppliers Tournament of Champions. My name is Rick Mitchell. I'll be your host today as we declare a winner for April 1991 from one of the following 5 qualifiers. In 5th position today, bowling in our first game, making his second appearance in 5th position in 2 months, Steve Barker. He'll be meeting with a 264 average, the 3rd appearance this year, Gord McAmoyle. The winner of that match will go on to meet someone who is also making his 2nd appearance this year, Gary Grant. And in 2nd place, and also making his 2nd appearance this year with a 272 average, Doug White. And in number 1 spot today, the first appearance on TV this year, Bill Lyon. That's our lineup, all here on Professional 5-Pin Bowling, coming to you today from North End Bowl, the home of champions. And joining me once again in the hot seat, our bowling analyst, Bert the Coach Harding. It was a real close one today, Bert. Just about 11 pins separating all 5 bowlers today.
Yeah, it was. And when you look at it, the next couple or 3 bowlers weren't that far behind either.
No.
So, again, it was a close one. It wasn't as high as scoring as last month, but it was a very close event, and it was anybody up to the end.
Yeah, our 6th place finisher today was only 4 pins behind. And our first bowler up there, Gord McAmoyle. He finished in 4th position today, so he elects to go first, meaning he will finish last, so he can see what Steve finishes with before he bowls his last frame. There's Steve missing his spare in the first frame. Like I said, this is the 2nd time that Steve has ended up in the 5th position. And that's unusual. Most other years, Steve was in 1st or 2nd, only had to bowl 1 or 2 games. This year he gets a chance to go right from the bottom all the way to the top.
That's something you don't see very often. Mr. Barker failing to make an adjustment after throwing 2 balls by the head pin. He threw the 3rd one by. There's Mr.
Steve in the 10th frame. That's why he's bowling again, of course. 2 in a row in the 10th.
If Stevie can throw this, it's going to force Gordy McAmoyle to get 2 in the 10th.
Looking to strike out in the 10th frame. This will be number 3.
No, chop off 40 count, 245. Gordy McAmoyle needs the first hit.
Steve just got a piece of that head pin, just barely toppled it over.
Gord needs the first hit. He must have the first strike. 43 count won't do it. That would give him 243.
Steve ends with 245. It's all up to Gord. The pressure is on. He's taken a lot of time with this shot. There it is. Oh!
And the game is over.
Head pin in the 10th. And that gave the game to Steve Barker. He is the winner of the first game here today. Well, Gord did everything right. He took his time, got himself lined up there for the shot. He thought about it. He got a good lift on the ball. And just a matter of a few inches would have made all the difference. But that is the game, and that is the game of bowling, as we've seen many times before. Steve Barker wins our first game with 245, Gordon McElmoyle 215.
Well, you hate to see a game won or lost with that kind of a break. Steve got his 2 strikes in the chop off for a 40 count. Gordy threw good ball, and just broke a fraction of an inch or an inch more than it should have, or so they didn't carry.
It's right in front of you. So, Steve, our winner going into game number 2, and he is meeting a real cool customer, somebody that it's really hard to tell how Gary is feeling on TV, because he never changes his expression. He never seems to have any nerves. I'm sure he is nervous a little bit when he first starts, but he just doesn't show it.
I can't believe some of these corner pins that Steve's leaving.
Yeah.
Although if you watch it right close at the end, Steve's ball was going away that time. Cut the 3 pin on the inside, took it out. There's a bad shot.
And these 2 bowlers have met once before on TV. In March 1989, it was the last game. Game number 4. This was for all the marbles in March. And Steve Barker was the winner, 297 to 273. So these guys had a real battle there in the last game. I don't know if Gary remembers that, but if he does, he'll be out for revenge this time.
Oh, bad. Gary's in a little bit of a hurry going up to that line.
So another close game after 2 frames, just 8 pins separating the 2 bowlers. Steve Barker 43, Gary Grant 35 after 2 frames. And Gary picks them all up for the 15 count. That's twice in a row, and that's good bowling. Pick up all your pins on the 3rd ball. It keeps you in the game.
But you can't get by without hitting the head pin against this fella. If you're going to beat this fella, you got to hit the head pin. You got to throw some strikes.
No, exactly. But if Steve happened to hit punch a head pin, Gary keeps himself in the game by picking up all his pins.
That's true. Way to go, Mitchell.
I said a head pin. That's not a head pin.
That's a head pin split.
Well, I just call it a split. I'm weaseling out.
He knows what he did, folks.
Yeah.
He put the Mitchell curse on Mr. Barker.
Well, he must be psychic then, because these bowlers can't hear us when they're on lane 3. They might be able to pick up a little bit on lane 2, but...
That's nice pinning. That's nice pinning. Through the split, counted as 15. But, again, now Gary Grant has a chance to catch him. Gary can throw a quick double here. The game's going to be all even. Oh, Gary's having a little timing trouble there. He's just having a little trouble with his approach. A little quick. Raising up at the line. Gary has not quite turned the ball. This is not how he was bowling on in the qualifying round. Qualifying round, I think, was his second game or third game? Second game. Gary started with a open frame in the first frame and then threw 9 strikes in a row for a 387 game. So he's quite capable of throwing the big ones. He's quite capable of
387, just fantastic there.
He's quite capable of throwing the big one. But he is not quite finishing that ball. That ball is not turning back into the head pin like he did when he was qualifying. It's that little extra pressure you put on yourself under the TV lights. See, the ball is going fairly straight down there. Gary might be a little quick.
Well, a most unusual game for Gary. He averages 240 when he makes it on TV in previous years. He's bowling really well in the qualifying round this year, but he's having a most unsuccessful TV round. He last bowled in January in the third game.
Mr. Barker just threw that ball. He did not roll it at all. He was all arm on that one. There. I have to say, Mr. Stevie Barker's got one of the best working balls around, one that will come back and really attacks the pins. And if he's throwing it right, he'll go forever. But if he gets a little quick or tries to throw it a little too hard, that's when he gets into trouble.
Steve is injury-free this month.
Yeah, well,
no bandages or casts or anything else on?
Just the pressure bandage on his forearm that he wears for comfort.
Yeah.
To protect his arm from... Because Steve uses a lot of wrist action and a lot of pull on the tendons in his forearm, so the way he turns the ball. So he has to put that little support on it to protect himself from pulling it too much.
Well, it seems to work for him.
There we go. Gary finally 3 corners in a row. Maybe the spare will get him started now. That's the old saying, isn't it?
Yeah.
Spare gets you started?
Yep. Right, left, and another right corner. He finally picks up the spare. And that's the first mark since the first frame for Gary. It's imperative that he get started.
Yes, because here comes this man.
Yeah. 58-pin lead for Steve Barker after 7 completed frames from both bowlers. So 60-pin lead, well, that's a couple of marks. So Gary has to get going. Because the way Steve's bowling today, he's not going to go 2 frames without marking.
And he just threw his Michael Jordan ball, bounced it several times.
Well, as long as he doesn't slam dunk it.
Woo! Playing them close. Yes, Gary's a little too fast on his approach. He's not able to get his arm all the way through. He slowed down to be very deliberate. Gary is saying that it's not there today. Well, it was earlier. That break between the qualifying and the TV show has done him in, I guess.
Yeah, Gary really having his troubles today.
Well, you don't
if he
average.
misses it, fine. If he hits it, he leaves something.
He averages 272 in the qualifying, and now all of a sudden he's struggling to hit 170.
Yeah. Well, he's averaging over 250 in the qualifying rounds this year.
Yeah.
But he just can't put it together on TV. And that's most unusual because previous years on TV, he's done fantastic.
Of course, Mr. Barker is not going to give many breaks here at all. When Stevie starts carrying the high hits, as well as the pocket hits, it's all over.
2 in a row for Steve. He's in the 10th frame. 2 more balls, 2 more strikes he's hoping for. He's already won the game. He has a 122-pin lead right now.
And he's getting warmed up for the next one.
Yeah. Practicing for the next game. He's looking to strike out. And 1 more ball, and that will be a reality. There it is.
Another one of those Michael Jordan balls, 286.
So we have to say goodbye for this month to Gary Grant. And I'm positive this guy is going to be back. You're going to see him again this year.
There we go.
Bowling really well in the qualifying round, as we said before.
There we are. Minute the pressure's off.
Yeah.
Game's over. Gary just threw 2 hits. Going for 3.
Nothing to it now. Gary ends with 3 in a row, a 45 count in the 10th frame. Gary had a strike in frame number 1, the first ball he threw, and then he struck out in the last frame, but he didn't have any strikes in between. Most unusual game for Gary. He ends with a 189, the winner of game number 2, Steve Barker with 286. And that about says it for the game. Gary just didn't have any strikes in between. Steve just kept plugging away and made a game of it.
Gary said it best, I guess. He just didn't have it today when it came to this TV. His approach, he had lost his approach. He was either a little fast or a little too deliberate and pulling the ball.
Timing
was gone completely. Now here we are. Here's a young fella that I guess is having a fine year, but not only that, he's a terribly intense competitor. Terribly intense competitor getting to be. You know, it wasn't, Dougie hasn't been around that long, but Dougie White had a fine open year. He was at the Ontario Open on the mixed team, and he bowled extremely well. And like I say, He's very, very intense. Going to be a fine shooter.
Well, making his second appearance in as many months, 2 in a row.
Yeah, he
must have finished in the same position this month as he did last month, because he was on the 3rd game last month.
Yeah.
He has met Steve on TV once before, back in June of 1988, in the 2nd game on TV, and Steve was the winner of that one. So except for Gord, Steve has beat all of his opponent, or both opponents so far today, on TV already.
Well, Mr. Barker, the last few years, has been one of the premier shooters around, and when these fellows would meet him on TV for the first time, they had a little bit of nerve problem, I think. They're very nervous playing Steve. Now these fellows are getting used to Steve. They play him now in the leagues and again here in this tournament and in the 3-6-9. So they know if they stick to their game, they can have a shot at him.
Well, then again, Steve had a rough year last year because of injuries, and he didn't make the final. He was our guest commentator here in our final show for 1990. So, you know, maybe these guys think, well, he's injured, it's not going to be as hard to beat him, but he's back now and just as good.
Well, Dougie hasn't missed the head pin. Steve hasn't hit it with the first ball.
There's a big spare for Doug. That'll give him a lot of confidence. Picking up the left-hand corner there. In the 3rd frame, Steve going into his 3rd frame now.
Yep, Steve is throwing the 3 frames now and hasn't hit the head pin with the first ball yet.
There it is. Good spare for Steve.
However, he hasn't hit the head pin yet, but he maintains a 2-pin lead. Now,
Yep, 2 pins after 3 frames from both bowlers. There's the big one for Steve.
yeah,
He hit the head pin decisively that time. I think about this time, Doug is up there hoping he doesn't have a game like Gary Grant. Doug started with a strike the same as Gary, and he hasn't had a strike since.
well, the difference being that Doug is hitting the head pin. But of all the times I've watched Dougie bowl, I say he's got the old, what I used to call the Motor City sickness, where you get a couple of marks and break off with a head pin. Get a couple of marks, break off with a head pin.
Yeah.
And that's disastrous when you do that. You just like putting the brakes on the car. You just stop up dead. It's not as if, you know, if he left the corner and something he could spare up, and continue his momentum. Dougie has this little habit of going along and punching.
And speaking of Motor City, for the fans out there, the next show that you'll see on cable, we are shooting our last TV tournament ever at Motor City. Something I call an Oshawa bowling institution, that building. A lot of us grew up around that place. And we're going to shoot our May TV tournament there for the last time ever, because sometime in May, the beginning of June, Motor City will close its doors forever. So that'll be one to tape and keep. We'll take some shots of the building if we get a chance, and should be interesting, Bert.
Yeah, that'll allow us to have, if we get some of the bowlers with a more outgoing character, you know, like that like to kick the racks and everything, maybe they'll help tear the place down. No, it will be.
Well, somebody said to me today, I put out a notice today saying that it would be at Motor City next month, and they said, do we bring our own matches?
No,
like burn the alleys? Famous cries from bowlers. Now we got a chance to do it. The place is closing.
It will seem like someone's taken away my home, I think.
Yeah. It almost feels like that.
I was there the day they opened it, and I guess I'll be there the day they close it.
1957, I think.
57, 58.
58. So just about 33 years. That's a long time. Like I say, a lot of us grew up around that building.
Yeah, we've had a lot of good bowlers come and go from there. A lot of wonderful times. The memories that we got from there of all the, not only bowling, but the social activities, the friends, and that be hard to replace. Of course, I thought that the old Motor City would be hard to replace too, and it was for a long time.
That's the one at 55 and a half Simcoe Street?
52 and a half.
50 what?
52 and a half.
52 and a half, okay.
I started working for Motor City as a volunteer and an employee in 1942, when I was 11 years old.
Yes, a lot of stories we could tell about Motor City, and some of them will come out next month, fans, so stay tuned. And get the VCR out for that one. Or better yet, come on down. If you're watching this show, it will be on May the 12th. That's a Sunday, and it's Mother's Day, so you got to remember that. Mother's Day, Motor City at 11 o'clock, and it will probably be, or it will be, the last tournament ever at Motor City. And definitely our last TV tournament ever. So, hope to see you there.
Well, Dougie White has just been given a gift. He was trailing by 14 pins with spare up, and Steve just opened up for him. Missed the head pin with 2 balls. If Dougie was to throw a strike, he'll be 1 point ahead of Mr. Barker. There,
big strike for Doug.
it's an extra big strike because that strike that Steve had, if Dougie hadn't have got one, would have given Steve a little extra momentum. This way, Dougie maintains his 1-pin lead.
Right, an extremely close game again. 144 to 143 in the 7th frame for Doug White. Both bowlers on a strike. Doug was really hoping for a strike there. Got a piece of the head pin. Not enough to carry the right-hand side. One of the hardest spares of all to make. Let's see what he does. Oh.
There's what happens so often.
Yeah, that's why it's so hard.
If the bowler would realize all he has to do is throw at the 3-pin, and you have to be very exact not to carry the corner.
Steve Barker with a strike working in the 8th frame. Oh, jumped over top. Carried those pins right back and over top of the corner pin. Leaves the right corner. Looking for a spare here in the 9th frame.
Well.
And that gives Steve a 2-pin lead in the 9th frame.
With the possibility of picking up another 15.
Oh.
Okay, 13. 201, he's got a 15-pin lead. You know, we could have a tie game. If Steve was to spare this and throw the hit and Dougie strike out, we got 2 boys at 231. Wouldn't that be marvelous? Well, we got the chance. There's the spare.
Well, that would be a first in recent memory. I can't remember the last, well, I can remember the last one, I think. It was a lot of years ago. Like early 80s that we had a tie on TV. And of course, if that happens, they'll bowl the 9th and 10th frames over.
Tie game. Possible tie.
Steve Barker ends with 231. If Doug White strikes out, he will finish with 231 also. It could happen, folks. Here's the first ball. Looking for a strike. Oh, he hit the hit pin. He did everything right, but he leaves the left corner.
There is no way that he wasn't giving it his honest shot.
No, it was a real good ball. He did everything right.
Excellent ball. Excellent ball. You know, it's going to come right down to that chop-off spare.
So for 2 months in a row now, Doug has come on in the 3rd game and lost in the 3rd game. Maybe 3 times we'll be lucky. Maybe he'll do it 3 months in a row, come on in the 3rd game and win and go on to the last all-important game. Doug White finishing off there. Steve, our winner, with 231. Doug with 206. And as we said, an extremely close game. Came right down to the last frame.
Well, I don't want to create any bad luck going here, but this should be one heck of a match. We're going to feature 2 of the finest bowlers to come out of this area in quite some time. They both come up through our YBC. Both were top shooters in our YBC. And this fella right here, ladies and gentlemen, there he is, the Ontario champion. Billy Lyons, the Ontario champion. He's getting ready to go out west for the Canadian finals. Billy won in Hamilton when they're up there a few weeks ago now, but he's your current Ontario champion. So Mr. Barker has his hands full now. This should be, or promises to be, quite a match.
Bill Lyon starts with a big spare.
Yeah.
This is the first time we've seen Bill qualify this year. Actually, it's the first time he's bowled in the tournament this year. He bowls Saturday afternoons in a Toronto traveling league, I guess it is, major traveling league, something like that. And he's unable to make it back down to Oshawa in time to bowl in the tournament. So that league is finished. He bowled today for the first time this year and qualified in first position. Bill averaging 241 on the TV portion of the show. And again, these two bowlers have met before. And again, Steve Barker was the winner. So Steve has beat everybody that he's bowled against today, except for Gord McElmoyle. He's never bowled him on TV.
Well, right away, if you watch real close, Steve has already changed just a little bit of his style. He is being a little more determined.
Well, I think he's been a little too cautious, though.
Yeah, that's what could be his downfall. But when you throw a ball like that and blow out aces, holy goodness. That was a tremendous set of aces.
In the second frame. And comes right back with a strike. Now, the last time these bowlers met, I said Steve was the winner, but it was an extremely close game. 281 to 273. So should be a most interesting game here today. The final game for March 1991. Steve with the right corner. In the third frame. Looking for his first mark of this game. And there it is. Spare in the third. Bill with a strike in the third. Bill with an 18-pin lead.
Yes.
And we had some high singles today, Bert.
We certainly did. We almost missed them too, didn't we?
Yeah.
Yes, and one of our bowlerettes had the high single in the first game, Sherry Rogers.
Sensational Sherry.
Joey Bartlett had the second high single. Bob Marsh, our technician here, had the third high single. Bob Way, our favorite newfie, had the fourth one. And Nat Amendola. Here's a fella that's coming out lately, and he's been doing all right. Nat Amendola got the fifth high single. If I'm not mistaken, he got one last month, too. One of these days, Nat's going to break it. He always seems to have that one bad game and doesn't quite make it. He had one game under 200 today. Otherwise, he was shooting in the 260 range, 270.
And all the high singles today, except one, were 300s.
Oh, yeah.
Very good shooting from the in the qualifying round today. Not as high as last month. Last month you needed 280 average to qualify for TV. We came down to reality this month. 273 for Bill, the top shooter.
But
a couple of 270s, and the rest were in the.
But again, you got to look.
260s.
You know, the top 10 were within 100 pins of each other.
Yeah.
In fact, number 11, who was 100 pins behind, was Bill Lyon's brother Bob.
Ah.
Well.
Another good shot from Steve, leaves the left corner pin. He has a couple of spares working. Looking for the third spare in a row. And there it is. Three spares for Steve. Both bowlers in the fifth frame, and a 2-pin lead for Steve Barker. 94-92 is the score. Oh yeah. Big strike for Steve. Bill bearing down. He knows what he has to do.
And
well,
he's shown that was maybe a touch thin, but good ball.
I actually thought it was going to be another set of aces there. And a big spare for Bill. Another right corner pin. Steve now with a 17-pin lead in the sixth frame.
But don't count this fellow.
Nope.
He's still got 302 left.
Possible 302 for Bill, 324 for Steve, 334 for Steve. If he strikes out from this point, he's in the seventh frame. And there's one. No, actually that's two. Two in a row now for Steve in the sixth and seventh frames. Time too, near the end of the game.
Here is another guy that's famous for breaking off strings with this kind of luck. I bowl with him on Monday nights.
Yeah.
And I've seen him throwing some beautiful games, and then all of a sudden, pop. Up it'll come. But he's still there.
A big 15 count for Steve after the head pin. He knows what he has to do, clear all those pins off, and that's just what he does. 184 in the eighth for Steve. Bill in the eighth frame now. Oh! He thought that was a strike, and so did we. Another right corner pin for Bill. He spared the last one. Let's see what he does now. Frame 8.
Yes. You know, I watched him up at Hamilton when he won the provincials, and it was one of the finest fields that I've ever seen in the Ontario Open, as far as named bowlers, really class bowlers. And Bill beat one of the finest bowlers in Canada in the finals, Donnie Betts from Niagara, and it was just something beautiful to watch. This man will not let down. He will not give you any breathing room at all. If you're going to beat Mr. Lyon, you got to get out and work for it.
Well, an extremely close game. 182 in the eighth and a strike working for Bill. 184 for Steve.
Yeah.
Both bowlers now with a strike in the ninth.
This is just pretty to watch. I don't care what the score is. When these two fellas get their heads together, it's pretty to watch them battle. They really go at it tooth and nail, because neither one will give up.
A 2-pin lead for Steve Barker in the ninth frame. Steve in the 10th now, missing that shot. Could be a costly miss. As you can see by his face, he's mad he missed that head pin.
Well, he wanted the first strike. The first strike is so important. Mind you, if he spares it up and strikes, Billy has to throw the first strike.
There's the spare.
If he can throw the strike now, Bill has to have the first strike. He will force Bill to strike if Steve can throw one. Because a spare strike won't do Billy any good.
Steve is going to bear down on this one. Must have a strike to force Bill to strike.
Now Bill doesn't have to strike. Bill can go spare strike for a tie game. If Bill doesn't get the strike with the first ball, he can spare it up and strike for a tie game. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we can have a tie game right here. A tie game in the finals. And we're running out of time. Wouldn't that be cruel?
Well, it could happen. We have about 1 minute left on our allotted hourly time.
Ladies and gentlemen, all I can say is I feel sorry for you people, because if Billy gets a strike here, I'm afraid we'll run out of time. You won't see the end of it, but we will sit here. We'll watch it.
We'll watch it, and we'll tell you the results. If we happen to get cut off, Bill needs a strike. And that's it. There it is. A tie game. 242 to 242 for these two bowlers. We apologize.
If we get cut off,
when we go off the air, it just has to happen. But okay, we're back on, and both bowlers tied. The first time ever, I think, in the final game that this has happened. They tied. They have to bowl the 9th and 10th frames again. Now, Bill was the first bowler in the first frame, so he bowls his 9th. Steve bowls the 9th and 10th, and then Bill throws the 10th to finish. Whatever happens here will determine the winner of this game. Every pin counts here, folks.
Yes.
This is definitely a first for our show. Bill starts with a spare in the 9th frame.
And we'll all pray together that the tape don't run out.
And there is Steve's 9th frame. Now, both bowlers will bowl their 10th frame again, which means they both bowl 3 balls. So it's possible for Steve to have 4 strikes. And if he does, he will be the automatic winner. Well, more interesting and more interesting. Steve with the head pin in the 10th frame in our tiebreaker, sudden death. Well, it would have been sudden death if Steve had thrown the 3 strikes, because Bill didn't start with a strike, but it didn't work out that way. Bill gets to shoot his 10th frame. Steve with a spare and a 15 count. So 40 pins in 2 frames for Steve Barker.
We could have another tie, you know, if he was to miss spare and miss the game.
It's quite possible.
Well, now...
Well, are you calling this, Bert? Are you doing this on purpose, or... This could go on for all night, you know.
Now, if he spares this and goes side or punch, well, we got a tie game. And we'll do it over again.
That's right.
Oh, we aren't going to do it over again.
We would have bowled the 9th and 10th again until we get an eventual final winner.
Yeah, we got...
But we have our eventual final winner now, Steve Barker, ending with a 40 count in the last 2 frames. Bill Lyon with a 35 count. Congratulations, Steve.
Way to go, Stevie. Tremendous game.
Bill.
Tremendous game. Come on in here. Come on in here. Come on in here.
Come on in here in between. We're not sure if this is going to get on cable. We ran out of time, so we put another tape in, and we'll see what we can talk them into.
This is one of the finest. And this is, ladies and gentlemen, this is just after this gentleman won the Ontario Championships. Billy's going away to the Canadians shortly, and we all wish him the best of luck.
And,
great show.
And I like to say for Bill that growing up bowling against Bill and with Bill, watching him win the provincials was one of the biggest thrills he's given me.
I was there with the rest of it, eh?
That was awesome.
Thanks, Steve.
Okay. Anyway, congratulations to both of you on a heck of a show here today. It was really something to see, you know. I was sort of hoping you would spare that up and then do that head pin shot with the next ball so we could go on again.
We could keep going. Okay, thanks a lot for watching.
Okay.
That's it, a great finish to our April show, and don't forget to stick around next month for our final show at Motor City Bowl. Should be most interesting. Until next time, sports fans, bye now.
And keep them rolling.
You got it.